This is ILLUMENATE, the podcast about men with good hearts, open minds, and a desire to make the world better. Welcome to ILLUMENATE. I'm your host, Chris Tidrick, and I'm here with James Burke. James is a digital creative and storyteller from Melbourne, Australia, who is passionate about mental health and inclusion for people, no matter what they may be facing in life. He's been married 18 years to Beth, has 2 wonderful kids, and a dog who is obsessed with him. Welcome to the show, James.
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much for having us. And I should preface that said obsessed dog may at some point just start scratching the door and demand to be let in because she's like, I'm not in the same room with him now.
Yes, I have pets that I'm hoping will stay quiet for the next hour as well. So thanks for being on the show. You are officially my first international guest. Hey. So ILLUMENATE is officially global now. So I can now say I have a global podcast. But what we like to do here is dive right in and talk about motivation. So tell me, what's your why? Where do you find purpose and what drives you?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things for me has been figuring out what does authentic life look like. I spent a long time, kind of feeling like I was an outsider. I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. I kind of had this map that society laid out for me of this is what life is supposed to look like. And everyone else around me seemed to be doing that really, really easily. And yet life for me and for my family seemed to be a lot more difficult, and we're having struggles and facing mental health challenges that other people just didn't seem to talk about or seem to even want to recognize or acknowledge. And the more the time went on and the more that we started to, break that stigma around mental health as a society, we started to realize that, hey, it's not just us. It's just that we were perhaps naively very open about it from day one. As a result, realized that we spent all these years feeling like we were isolated, we were alone, there's something wrong with us, instead of the fact that, hey, this is something that, 2/3 of the population might deal with at some point in their life kind of thing. It's not such an isolated thing. And so that kind of gave me this renewed focus in life of going, hey, everyone is struggling with something, but so many people are keeping quiet about it. How do we help them become open about that and share about that and have the vulnerability to create spaces where people can be open about what they're going through, and then realize that, hey, they're actually not alone in this. They're not the only ones, and there's nothing wrong with them. Yeah,
so that's it feels like a great motivation to kind of get you up and keep you going during the day. So, we're all made of our experiences. So, what are those significant moments in your life that kind of got you here? Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been living in Melbourne for most of my life. I lived my teenage years out in the country, which was kind of really cool. And then the minute I turned 18 and went to university, moved straight back to the city, and went, no, this is where I want to be. I want to be around people. I want to be around things that are happening. I got married really young. So I studied media at university. I worked as a wedding photographer for about 10 years. And I then worked as a photographer doing editorial work for a small magazine back in the days when print magazines had budgets to pay for photographers. And then kind of navigated that shift from, hey, all of a sudden print is dying, we need to move online, reinventing ourselves and our media offerings in that space. Got married really young. So, I was 22 when I got married. Beth was 21. We met and we just knew. And, 18 years later here, we still are. So I think we made the right choice. And over the kind of the next little while, we started to, join our lives together. And my wife was the first one that kind of opened my eyes up to kind of mental health struggles in the world. So, I knew it was a thing. I knew it was something that happened, but had never had any firsthand experience with it or knew anyone who was really open about it or would talk about it. She's had an anxiety disorder for most of her life, and she was very upfront about that with me when we met and when we were dating and things like that, because it played out as a factor in our lives. And a couple of years into our marriage, she kind of had what then we probably would have called it a nervous breakdown. And she had to stop working. And we went, okay, wow, that's not necessarily the course that we thought things were going to be. But we thought we're going to, have, several years, both of us working, save some money, buy a house, do all that kind of stuff. Instead, we dropped down to one income and then went, we wanted to have a family. we wanted to have a family relatively young. My dad was like 46 when I was born. So I'm just like, no, I want to be a young dad who's still going to run around and wrestle with his kids and things like that. So we decided, well, hey, we've made the progression to one income. Let's why not? Let's start trying and see what happens. And a month later, we're pregnant, and then we welcome our son along to our family. And over the next kind of 3-4 years, we went through this period of going, hey, we thought that perhaps my wife's mental health was going to get better and she was going to start to be able to be more capable. I had to negotiate remote work with my workplace so that I could be around and be at home to be a lot more hands-on and help with the caring and that kind of stuff. And things did get better. And we got to a point where we were like, we've always wanted 2 kids. So we decided to try again, have a second kid. Our family felt complete, and this was wonderful. We had a daughter this time around, but that pregnancy really kind of hit my wife in a really much bigger way. She got hit with perinatal anxiety and depression that was far worse than anything she'd experienced before. She got hit with postnatal depression after our daughter was born as well. And we got to the point where I had to really make some changes around, we were relying on friends to drop our son to kindergarten at that time and things like that. And we had these friends turn around and go, hey, we've helped you out for a while now, but we really think you just need to tell your wife that she needs to cope better and we can't help you anymore, which really just absolutely floored me. And still one of the worst conversations that I've had with people that had been close friends. Our kids were the same age, they'd grown up together since they were babies, kind of thing. These are guys that I saw weekly. We'd hang out together as families and things like that, and all of a sudden they're just like, no, we can't help you anymore, we've done enough and it's time for you guys to manage how to figure it out yourself. Neither of them had any real experience with mental health, which was really telling in that moment, and then kind of as the years went on as well. But it really caused this whole shift of going, how do people just not get this? How do people not understand to the point where the thing that was actually helping our family to, keep going and thrive and get through each day kind of thing, they just go, no, actually.
How did that impact you personally?
For me, it kicked off what I had been avoiding for many years, which was the feelings that perhaps I was struggling with something myself. I'd listen to a podcast where someone described their depression symptoms, and in my head I'm going tick, 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 but didn't want to admit that. And I started seeing a counselor around that time. And at first I thought it was just, I'm going to go see a counselor to help me understand how to support my wife better. The reality was, as soon as I was there, he was kind of just like, well, okay, yeah, let's dive into some stuff because you're looking pretty clinically depressed. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I had to confront that myself and just go, wow, okay, this is not something that I'm dealing with secondhand. This is actually firsthand for me as well. The stresses of the pressure of having to try and juggle kids and work and family and a boss who was not helpful either and things like that just really, really hit. I got made redundant from my workplace, which was a blessing in disguise. It was that unhelpful boss's way of getting me out after she tried to start some HR proceedings against me for the horrendously bad behavioral issue of using my personal leave to look after my family. And again, it was someone else. It was just someone else that just did not understand the mental health space whatsoever. But that turned out to be amazing. I got a new job around the corner. I wasn't then commuting 45 minutes each way to work. I had a lot more flexibility. I could work from home. And it really, I thought this is going to be great. And then I started at a new place and all of a sudden I'm feeling even worse. And I'm just like, wow, okay. Ended up seeing a psychologist and realized for the first time that, hey, even though I don't necessarily have a lifelong kind of mental health challenge that I'm faced with, the fact is that it can hit anyone based on situations and circumstances that they might be dealing with in their life. And so that's really what kicked me on to be such a passionate person to speak out about mental health, to the point where I managed to convince my last workplace that, hey, this is a really important thing. And so we actually, I developed and hosted and produced a podcast for them for 3 or 4 years about mental health in the faith-based space. I was working for a faith-based nonprofit. And it was all about that reality of, hey, let's speak up, because everyone who shares a story was saying the same thing. It wasn't until they started speaking up that they realized they're not alone. And that difference of realizing they're not alone made a huge, significant impact in their ability to start to journey through their own challenges, but also find, not necessarily healing or recovery to a point where it's not an issue, but be able to get to a point where they feel like life is sustainable, at least, that they can manage it, that they can get through life with its challenges, but know that they've got people around them, people that understand what's going on and who aren't going to judge or dismiss them based on the fact that they seem to be suffering from this invisible illness.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that ability to talk about it and hear and see that other people are going through this. I know that, like, I see a therapist just for just to sort of keep my head straight on a pretty regular basis and sort of work through things. And I started talking about that online, and the number of people that reach out to me and say, thank you for talking about it online, because there's such a stigma against it. And it's just, just the simple fact of, hey, I go to I talk to a therapist every other week, and it's fantastic for me. You should try, if you're struggling with, working through things, do it yourself. So yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, our family motto is almost like everyone should have a therapist, whether or not they're like, everyone needs that kind of impartial third party who's actually got the skills and experience to help you see things from a different perspective and help you
because
stuff.
Yeah, so many people say, well, I have my spouse or I have my friends to talk to. And that's great, right? Your spouse and your friends can be really great thought partners for you and emotional support. But at the end of the day, the therapist doesn't have a pony in the race.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? They're there just to help you work through things on your own. And that's something that took me a while to understand, because I was very anti-therapy for a long time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was like, I tried it. I'm like, oh, this actually works. One of the things about therapy, especially with men, they have this sort of negative idea about it. And so, like, what does being a healthy man in today's world look like to you?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that being a healthy man is learning emotional intelligence and emotional health. I think so much of the issues that we struggle with or deal with, can at some point be relayed back to the fact that we haven't actually been taught the emotional skills of how to deal with stuff that comes up. I'm a classic example of a bottle it up. Like, if something happens, take a deep breath, shove it down, and hope that it never resurfaces again. Lo and behold, it does bubble up to the surface, and all of a sudden, when you get to your limit, then you can't shove anything more down on top of that. I think when we, it's maybe it's societal, maybe it's cultural, whatever it is, kind of thing. But growing up, I'm 40, so growing up, 80s, 90s kind of thing, and it's boys don't cry, boys don't show emotions, get over it, toughen up, be a man, all that kind of stuff is great in some respects, because resilience is a huge thing that we need to learn, but it shouldn't be resilience at the cost of actually learning that emotions are normal, and emotions are a really important part of our lives, because they're a really good indicator that, hey, something's not working right here. Something's causing me either physical or mental harm, and I'm not realizing it, but I'm stressed about this. I'm angry all the time, whatever it is. You need to learn that those emotions are there for a reason, and to then realize that this is the early warning signs that things aren't going great, and maybe we should be doing something about it before it gets to the blow-up point, because that's going to cause even more issues if you wait till then, when it comes out in all sorts of unhealthy ways. And then the other part of it is just realizing that not just emotional, but relational intelligence as well. That's, guys have, that same kind of macho, stoic man figure that we grew up with, kind of thing. So my dad grew up during World War II. He was born just before the start of World War II. And so has grown up in that generation of, strong, stoic, rebuilding. We do everything independently kind of thing. We need to learn how to do these things ourselves, and we just don't talk about it. His dad, my grandpa, served in the war. He wasn't a frontline soldier, but he was, there under threat of bombardment kind of thing. Never talked about it after he came back. And that was kind of the model that was passed down. And so this idea that relationally, guys just do it alone and guys just kind of deal with things by themselves, I think is one of the other things that really, really causes guys to be unhealthy, because the reality is we're not individual people. We grew up as, a people that lived as, tribes or villages and things like that. And we did everything together. We shared the load together. We didn't go off hunting by ourselves. We hunted as a team, all that kind of stuff. And so the minute we now try and tackle every single problem, every single stressor that life faces us by ourselves is never going to end well. And sure, we go, yeah, but I've got great guy friends, and we watch the game, we go for drinks, we do whatever it is we do, we play sports together. But like, how many of those friendships are at the point where you could actually call up and say, hey man, I'm having a really awful week, I've been crying for the last hour, I don't know what's going on. Like, how many friendships would you have, or would most guys have, where that isn't met with either awkward silence or ridicule? And that relational intelligence of being able to go, I know I've got the people in my life that can support me when things are going bad, means that I don't have to feel this burden of shouldering it alone and always doing everything, carrying everything by myself, even though that's still kind of the image that we're presented of what a man is supposed to be.
Yeah, this rugged individualism seems like it's just this toxin in the world, and we just can't. It's hard to get rid of, and I think we all, as men, we all kind of get infected by that at certain times. So you've obviously done a lot of growth in your life.
It's spent a lot of money in psychology. That's what I've done as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're working on yourself. You're going through these things, and I have found in my life, and this is the 22nd interview that I've done for this podcast. And so many of the men have, gone through these periods where they've had to deconstruct something that they previously held really close. They believed, and then all of a sudden it was like, that doesn't work for me anymore. So talk about, have there been things in your life that you've had to deconstruct something that was really important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things. One's in a faith-based space kind of thing. I would say I'm a Christian. Don't necessarily look like what a traditional Western Christian would look like, though. And part of that has been that I found that a lot of the things that I was taught growing up about what it meant to be as a man of faith weren't actually helpful. They were almost counterintuitive as to what would actually make me survive and flourish as a person. I tried to combine thrive and flourish. That's an interesting choice.
Flourish.
Yeah.
It's a good word.
Yeah,
though.
I like it.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing that, the man is the head of the household and the man provides for the family and the man is, God's head and the family needs to submit to him. So he needs to be the one in charge and making the decisions and things like that. I'm like, well, that's great. But what happens when it's the man in the family that's struggling with stuff and doesn't feel like he can, shoulder that burden? What happens when, the guy doesn't know what the next correct decision is supposed to be? If he's supposed to be the fearless leader that knows all and everyone else is supposed to follow him in the family. And so I really struggled with that because I saw a lot of that modeled around me in churches about these guys that would, make a decision and, this is then what my wife and family will do. And even that original conversation with some of those guys was just like, you just need to be the husband and say to your wife, no, this is what you need to do, and she needs to do it. I'm like, but that doesn't actually work in reality, and I don't want to diminish my wife to the point where she is just supposed to do what I say and not have an equal where this is figured out together in actual partnership. So it's one of those things where my faith is still there, but a lot of the teachings around kind of the Western church, I realized over time were very institutional as opposed to necessarily biblical or what Jesus was actually telling people to do.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I've kind of had to really wrestle with, to the point where, I actually spent my life up until now working in faith-based nonprofits. And part of the disconnect and struggle at my last place was, I had to outwardly, kind of present the line of what was a conservative Christian organization, and inwardly going, But it's way more nuanced than that, and there's no black and white, and there's no answers that you can just say, yes, here's your simple answer to things. So it's been really interesting to walk that line and then come to a point of realizing that, well, no, actually, yeah, if as a Christian I believe that, everyone is made in the image of God, that means everyone is made equally in the image of God, whether or not they are a man or a woman. And so my wife, my kids get to be equal partners in that. I get to have discussions with them and get their input and say that, yeah, okay, that's a good thing. And then what ties into that is then the ability to learn to say that I'm wrong, and that I don't know, and I don't know what the best step is. To be willing to go, hey, I actually don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I think sometimes, elder millennial, so I think our generation a bit, we kind of feel like no one taught us how to adult. We just kind of were expected to figure out how to do it. And then, the global financial crisis happened and lost jobs or couldn't get houses and all these things, and grew up with 9/11 happening, and that changed the world instantly overnight and all these things. But I'm just like, well, actually, I don't think anyone really was ever taught how to adult. But there seems to be this persistent narrative that, oh, yeah, everyone knows what they're supposed to do next. And it's like, no, I don't. I don't know what the next step is. At the moment,
Yes.
You go. Sorry.
you're like elder millennial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1995, baby.
So I think that like I'm Gen X, and so like the Gen Xers were just like feral and on their own, right? I honestly think that's where the individualism came from, is that there was this entire generation of kids that was just out there on their own and running around neighborhoods and, doing all this stuff. And I think you still had it sounds like you still had some of that in you. So, your story about the church and like sort of the figuring out how to quiet that cognitive dissonance between what you were told and what you like probably saw in the Bible and said, wait, these two things don't actually match up with each other. I think there are a lot of US Christians that are finally starting to wake up to that idea of like that the cognitive dissonance gets so loud in your head that you're like, I'm going to back out of this institutional thing in order to keep my faith.
Well, this is one of the things that I think my last workplace really couldn't wrap their heads around, even here in Australia, but it was a global organization, was that, I haven't been to church in 5 years now. And yet I would very strongly say and claim that my faith is stronger now than it has ever been. And it's probably because I'm not in church that my faith has actually become stronger, because I've actually had to figure that stuff out myself and sit in the grey in between. Things aren't black and white. I have to sit in the middle, sit in the discomfort of not knowing the answers, and then going, but hey, it comes down to actually faith and trust and looking at what Jesus actually said to do rather than what we've built up as all these structures around it.
Yeah. I left the church. Grew up Catholic. Left the church right after college. Essentially, won't go into the gritty details of that. But 30 years. I mean, I was 30 years without it, and then my wife and I actually found a really progressive church here in our town that is almost so progressive it doesn't feel like church. Right. It's, I want one of those. Which is, it's actually a wonderful thing. And it's given me this space to sort of re-explore faith, re-explore the central moral of the New Testament and, and what that all sounds like. Yeah. So, and one of the things that church has given me, like a return to church has given me, is the sense of community and, having people around. So where do you find or create community?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, that's the one thing that we are, sorely miss from being in the church, was that there was almost that automatic community around you. There were people that were willing to, be in your life multiple days a week kind of thing. Part of the reason why my wife and I are both in the space we are is because then when we left that and all of a sudden these people that we've spent the last 10 years with just disappear with almost out a word, you're just like, wow, okay, how real was that friendship and relationship then if that's the case, that it was purely based on, I'm here at your face so you can't forget me. Community is something we've had to learn to be intentional about, and something honestly we really struggle with. This is, again, learning to say I don't have the answers. there's times where my wife and I are desperately lonely because, we've got the beginnings of a community around us, but everyone else is also busy and stuff like that. And so there's times where we're just like, we feel that need for connection. We want to go hang out with friends. We want to go and, escape life through the space of let's laugh and sit and eat a meal together with other people and things like that. And then go, but hang on, everyone's busy or they're too far away or things like that. And so we've had to learn that community has to be intentional, and we have to actually have people and choose to have people in our lives that are going to be that new community when we don't have the structure of church on Sunday and small group during the week and things like that. And so that's meant that sometimes it looks different to what, people would think it would be. My best friend lives 3 hours away. He and I get to see each other in person maybe once or twice a year if we're absolutely lucky, and that is maybe we'll both drive halfway and have lunch at a pub because we've both got primary school age kids kind of thing. I've got an older one as well. He work and family and all that kind of stuff, and so the time to actually get together in person. But the reality is, there's not a day goes by where there's not several, sometimes 100 messages back and forth. We've chosen that.
So, what does that relationship look like to you? I have a real fascination in male friendship because it's something that I've come to really late in my life. I used to have most of my really good friends growing up and through college and from my younger adulthood. We're all women. I just, for some reason, developed friendships with women better. And so I'm fascinated by it. So describe that friendship with your best friend.
Well, it's really interesting you say that because I'm the same. A lot of my really good friends, growing up were women. And, still today, a lot of my good friends are. My best friend is my wife kind of thing. It's not just a cliche, but actually she is the person I like spending time with and hanging out, doing stuff with. With my male friends. So this one especially, it's one of the things that I really found lacking was that lack of emotional depth or even emotional intimacy, which can be a bit of a challenging concept to think about in the space of a guy friendship.
Yeah.
But the fact that he and I, we've known each other for, a couple of decades now, probably. It's really only been in the last probably 10 years or so that we've actually gotten really close to the point where, this is my best friend. This is the guy that I'm speaking to through messages several times a day, because there's the ability there to go, hey, life is really, really crap at the moment. This is what's going on. And there's the emotional intelligence on each end for each other to go, okay, I don't want to do I'm not going to do that automatic guy thing of trying to fix it and go, hey, have you thought about X, Y, Z? You should do these things. You should try this. Have you thought about this? There's also not that, power on through, you'll be right, get through it kind of thing. But the willingness to actually sit in the hurt with each other has been the thing that's been really, really restorative for me in terms of learning what a, emotionally healthy friendship can be, is to go, that sucks. And I don't know what the answers are. I don't know what the way out of this situation is for you, but I'm here with you in whatever capacity that looks like, in whatever capacity you need. And I know, if it was serious enough, either one of us would drop whatever we do, jump in the car, drive the 3 hours to the other one's place and be there for each other. But it's I'm not going to try and just force you through this. I'm going to walk with you at the pace that you need to walk through this at. I'll give you some advice or thoughts if that's what you're seeking, but I want to be doing this in a way that actually treats you with the respect and the gentleness that you need through this, so that you can actually come through this in a way that keeps this relationship to where it is, but is also restorative for you in whatever it is that you're trying to deal with, so that you feel like you've got the support to face what you are facing, as opposed to just feeling like more people aren't listening and you have to try and figure it out yourself.
So how did you get there? Because it sounds like you two weren't that way all the time.
Yeah.
Was it a slow evolution, or was it like a eureka moment of, hey, we need to be better for each other?
Yeah. And I've done this with a few different friendships as well. And some, friendships, I am very aware that friendships can be seasonal and can be, you'll be friends for a season in life and then not. But there's been a couple of times, it happened with this guy, it happened with another couple of guys as well, just going, hey, we hang out enough, we've been friends for however long, but I actually want to intentionally go, hey, I want there to be a level of honesty and openness that you can actually tell me anything and know that there is not going to be any judgment and there's not going to be any repercussions for you saying that. Whether that's you're struggling with something, whether that's you've stuffed something up and you need help, like I will be there for you and I'll be there with the sole intention of championing you. For the guy I've been talking about, his name's Matt. It really kind of hit home. So both of our wives were pregnant with our daughter and his, wait for it, triplets at the same time. It was there. So we were kind of like, it was kind of fun. We'd come back into each other's lives after our son was born, and he's 5 years older than our daughter. So, and they'd been around a little bit, since he was around because, they didn't have kids. So they would often come down to Melbourne and hang out and things like that. And then all of a sudden his wife, they're starting their family, yay, whoopee. And then they go for their first scan and the ultrasound technician's just like, there's 1, 2, 3 babies in there.
I can't even imagine that. Right. Oh
wild.
My God. Yeah.
And so that quickly became, from like 30 weeks, his wife was on literal enforced bed rest in the hospital, could not move because they were worried that basically any movement was going to trigger off an early labor. And it was the rush to try and keep those, little tiny underdeveloped babies, in as long as they possibly could to give them the absolute best chance of the survival. And so we had that kind of journey down the same track of fatherhood with babies at the same age at a similar stage, but, quickly became apparent that, even though there were other dads in our lives going through similar stuff, none of them were dealing with the level of complications of mental health on my side of things, or the fact that it was, high risk medical risk for his babies as well. And so there became that whole kind of, you get it. When I say, like, I'm stressed about this, like, you get it. It's not just that general stress of, my wife's pregnant, she's going to have a baby, I hope the baby's going to be okay, blah, 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 blah. But it was just like, no, my wife's pregnant on enforced bed rest in a hospital. And his wife had to come down to a hospital in Melbourne. So he was living a couple of hours away. So he would be, working, coming down on the weekends and basically living in the hospital room next to her on the weekends, and then having to go back to work during the week and things like that.
It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's, I was sharing with him the situation that was going on with my wife's mental health and the perinatal anxiety that really kicked off even worse. And there became that mutual understanding that, okay, neither of us are in the typical situation. Both of us are living with this kind of bigger, almost existential dread lingering over our heads kind of thing. So when I say to you, hey, it's been a really hard day, there was that immediate understanding of, oh no, I know what you mean, because if this is your scale of stress, like, this is where you are normally. So if you've had a really hard day, like, I know exactly what that means. It's not just I've had a hard day, there was a rough meeting at work or something like that. It's like, no, I've had a hard day. It's been, my mind has been throwing all those deep, dark thoughts at me that I don't want to entertain for a second, yet they don't stop coming. And so it was really that kind of almost slow burn crisis of dealing with those kind of stuff and dealing with those things mentally for both of us that really cemented that. And it became that understanding that it was like, okay, we've both dealt with suicide ideation in our brains to some extent. We've both dealt with those awful thoughts about, hey, life would be easier if these things hadn't happened, but we still love our families and still love our kids. And knowing someone else that's been there and been in those dark places means that, we could go to each other and go, man, it's been one of those days where I just don't even want to anymore. And we're just like, yeah, brother, I hear know exactly what it means to be in that place. And that is awful. And I'm sorry. And if there is anything I can do, let me know what I can do.
Have you ever read anything by Richard Rohr?
No, but I've had him quoted at me about 17,000 times over the last couple of years. So I really should.
He's one of my favorite authors. And it looks through things through a religious lens. But one of his things that he talks about is like the depth of human connection that comes from shared suffering. Right. And that's exactly as you were describing that. I'm like, that's what he's talking about, right? You two have bonded over the fact that you went through really like challenging times together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it continued on from there, because then all of a sudden, we're both dealing with the sleepless nights of newborn babies, and we're both dealing with changing nappies and all that kind of stuff. And it was really funny. 6 months in, he and his wife realized, he's like, I don't like my job and she really likes hers. So why is it that she's going to stay home and look after these babies? And so he ended up becoming a full-time stay-at-home dad, and I was in this space of working from home a lot, but primarily, being the primary carer for the kids as well, kind of thing. So again, it was that shared experience of being, stay-at-home dads in a world that doesn't really recognize that yet, and dealing with the frustrations of trying to take your kids to the nurse appointments, kind of thing, and the nurse going, "Why isn't the mum here?" And it's like, well, because I'm the kid's parent, I can bring them. Mum needs to be here to tell us what's been going on. And it's like, I'm not one to tell it all.
Yeah. So we're at the point in the episode where we do what I call the slow rolling thunder round, because I used to call it a lightning round, but they never went fast. So it's now the slow rolling thunder round. Intended to be relatively quick, short answers, but a lot of times I'll like something will catch my interest and I'll be like, hey, let's dive into that a little bit more. 12 questions. The first one is, what are your top 3 values?
Yeah. Honesty. And I don't know, integrity is up there. In some ways, it's the same thing. Like, if you're very honest about things, you're going to be you're going to have integrity around them as well. But, integrity would be another one. And probably selflessness. I really hate selfish people.
What is that? How does that look? Because I think a lot of people who value selflessness can end up like just hammering themselves into the ground and not taking care of themselves. So like, how does that look?
That's me 100%. I did that, and I've thankfully come out the other side. I had to do a lot of work with my last psychologist around this whole nature of taking on the responsibility and feeling the responsibility for everyone else and doing that. And I think my love of selflessness almost perhaps came out of the space of, well, I'm doing this, so why can't everyone else be doing this as well? Like, if I have to think about other people before myself, it's only fair if everyone else has to think about other people before themselves as well. But it's a real thing, because like it landed me in burnout. Because it was just like I was allowing no space for myself. I was prioritizing myself last after, it was, kids, wife's job, kids' school, my job, blah, blah, everything else right down the bottom, me and my needs. And I ended up burnt out. And
that is likely why that first therapist you saw instantly said, you need to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. Yeah, exactly. So what's your favorite emotion?
Joy, like, and that pure, unbridled joy where, you're laughing your absolute ass off, you're with friends kind of thing, and you're just like, this moment is incredible. Like, I'm going to remember this moment because there is absolutely nothing negative here. It is pure joy at, each other's company, at whatever we're laughing at, whatever it is. That has got to be one of my favorites.
All the worry just goes out the window.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? There is nothing else in the world except for this joy right here in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your least favorite emotion?
Ooh, probably shame. I got diagnosed a few years ago with ADHD, so I've had to unlearn a lot of self-ingrained shame from childhood, of feeling like I wasn't doing things right, I couldn't do things right, I was just a lazy kid, I wasn't, all this kind of stuff. And even though I've done a lot of work, it's still that thing that like has that absolute ability to just cut me to the core instantly, kind of thing, and just make me want to shrivel up and disappear. Yeah,
because you're not talking negative about a behavior, you're talking negative about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's you
can't hide from that.
Yeah, exactly. Where can you feel the most yourself?
Ooh, I've had to do a lot of work in this space, because the go-to like socially accepted answer that I would have said initially would have been like, oh, around my family. But I reckon, in the work I've done over the last couple of years, especially since the ADHD diagnosis, I realized that even then there was a level of masking and not being myself. The place I can be myself the most is actually probably just with my wife one-on-one. She's been an amazing, incredible support in me learning to embrace who I am and not be constantly masking or putting forward this version of myself that I think is what other people want to expect and see and interact with. And she from the first moment was just like, hey, I understand that this means that you're going to be uncomfortable and it might be different for me of how I see you with certain things and how you act around certain things, but I want you to do that. I want you to be yourself. And so knowing that I can actually embrace my love of nerdy hobbies or whatever it is kind of thing. And she goes, yep, awesome. I've gone from having to hide away my love of Star Wars to now I have, 3D printed droids sitting next to my desk and a big poster of Tatooine on the wall in the family space, not just hidden away in the garage or something like that. Like she's embraced them to the point of going, no, this is you and I love you. So I want you to be yourself around me as much as you can.
Every human needs that person, whether it's their spouse, a friend, just somebody that they can just do that with.
Absolutely.
And so many people don't have it.
Yeah.
And what's one way that you try to make the world a better place for others?
I think by trying to create space for vulnerability. I have this. I don't know if it's quite. I don't know if I read it or whether it just came out of me ending up saying it lots of times throughout my work. But I believe that vulnerability breeds vulnerability. So the minute you are vulnerable, it allows people the permission, even though they perhaps didn't realize they needed permission, to go, oh, okay, well, if he's going to share that, I can share what I'm going through. And honestly, like so much of what we deal with in our heads is caught up with the, I don't know whether I can say this out loud. I don't know if I can actually reveal exactly what I'm thinking or exactly how much this is affecting me. But the minute someone else is willing to go, hey, I am here and I have no idea what I'm doing. I do not have anything together at all. I have no plan beyond the next month. And yet I'm still somehow responsible for, family and kids and all that kind of stuff. And I hate what my brain does to me half the time and things like that. But I'm still here and still going. There's like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have to hide that stuff. I don't have to keep that hidden away. I can be open with that, start to share that, and then hopefully learn how to deal with that better.
What do you want other men to see in you?
I mean, vulnerability, yes, but I think a passion for how much I love my wife and my kids and how openly I express that in public, in conversations with other people. I hate the trope of guys getting together and moaning and whinging about their wives and, the ball and chain and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, like I love my wife. I love hanging out with her. My biggest stress in life at the moment is that I want to go on a holiday, but I don't want our kids to come with us. I just want to go and have like 2 weeks with her somewhere. Yeah. And so, I want guys to see that, no, like, love your wife, be open with that. You've chosen to partner yourself to this person, so why are you putting her down behind her back?
Yeah.
Like, celebrate her and celebrate her wins and everything she is.
Amen. What makes you the most proud of yourself?
Probably the work I've done in myself, to be honest, because hasn't been easy. I'll be the first to put my hand up and say it's not easy. Like, doing the work in therapy is not easy. It's great to go, but people often don't realize that then, in the 2 weeks in between, you go again. Like, you've got to put in the hard yard yourself to be working on that stuff by yourself without someone there saying, hey, you need to do this. You need to pick yourself up again every time you mess up or you fall back into a pattern of thinking that you're trying to change. You've got to keep doing that work. I was thinking that the fact that I've willingly embraced my flaws to the point of going, you don't want to sit in a place where they control me, and I want to do the work so that I can be the best human, the best husband, the best father, the best employee I can be. That's probably what I'm most proud of.
So you've done a lot of growing.
Yeah.
But right now, today, after all the growth you've done, what's your greatest opportunity for growth or improvement?
Probably still in the family balance space. So in learning that I am equally a human who deserves to be prioritized and have his needs met, there's then the difficulty of going, well, how do I balance that with also my kids need time and their needs met? My wife needs time and input from me and her needs met. But also, like, I don't feel guilty anymore about the fact that, but this is what I want to do now. Whereas used to, I'd just like not even allow myself to think that I could do that, or just go, that's never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to go and play a game with my friends online for a few hours tonight, kind of thing. I go, no, I want to go play with my friends tonight. Like, I don't want to be sitting here and whatever it might be. But yeah, that's probably learning how to balance that in a way that actually gives to everyone, including myself, what they need.
So you talk about being intentionally vulnerable, but where do you feel sort of unintentionally the most vulnerable?
Ooh. Probably in the space of giving my kids what they need. Both my kids are neurodivergent as well. So they both got differing needs. You know, school is a challenge for both of them in a traditional schooling set. And yet I still feel like if someone said, oh, you could be doing more, or you could be doing this or that, that would just cut through me instantly, kind of thing. And I know, because I feel that guilt of I should be doing more. Because you want to give your kids more, you want to give your kids everything. But if someone was to say you should do this, and it's something that I hadn't already thought of, I haven't already tried, I'd be like, oh man, how have I missed that? How have I not been doing that for them?
Yeah. So what's the hardest thing about being you in today's world?
Oh, having learned to embrace the fact that I have ADHD. Whether you want to call that a disability, whether you want to call that a superpower, flip between the two about 1,700 times a day. The hardest part is, like, I'm in a season where I got made redundant from my last workplace after 9.5 years. You know, 1 week they said, we're cancelling your show that, was my baby that I'd grown from the ground up over 4 years. And literally 4 days later, they're just like, okay, so now that the show's been cancelled, there's no space for you here anymore. We don't require your services anymore. And that was right in that period of burnout of just going, I almost don't even know what I want to do beyond hide in bed all day, every day. Doing the work, and it was funny because, like, I thought that was going to be the time where I was going to need my psychologist the most. Turns out, like, 2 months later, she's like, you don't need to see me anymore. You got this. And I was like, oh, okay. Turns out that situationally, there'd been a lot of stuff that was contributing to the burnout there, and actually being free of that was wonderful. But now I'm in the place of going, well, I don't ever want to put myself back in a place where I am trying to fit myself into someone else's mold just to get to that job or to be what they expect that employee to be. I've spent, the better part of 40 years living my life trying to present forward what I think other people want to see of me. And so that means now, like, I'm applying for the jobs and getting turned down for the first time in my life at the age 40. I mean, my wife hates it because I usually always talk to my way into a job rather than applied for a job and interviewed for it. I usually just networked, connected, somehow now all of a sudden I'm an employee somewhere. I've been there for 8 years or something like that. Whereas now, like, I'm actually having to put myself out there and go, hey, this is who I am. And the reality is I have ADHD. I have kids with neurodivergence who require a lot of my time as well. So I'm not going to be your 9-to-5 employee who's going to, be putting in extra to make a good impression in the first few months, who's going to go over and above because this is going to become my new identity. It's like, no, you're going to come second as my employee. Like, my family comes first and who I am comes first before that. So this is who I am. This is what I can do. Take that or leave that. But so far it's always been leave that. So that's where it feels a bit difficult to be myself at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. So what's one thing that surprised you about today's conversation? Either maybe something I asked or something that you answered that you surprised yourself in answering that way?
Yeah, I think it's it probably helped me understand how my friend Matt and I got to where we are a little bit in just thinking through, what was it that actually forced us to go from, friends in each other's orbits to actually, this is a guy that I message every day, all day, every day. It's been really, really cool. But I think also just that, I loved hearing the fact of you refinding church and refinding a church that is actually so progressive it doesn't feel like a church, because honestly, that's what I think Jesus was intending when he was telling us how we're supposed to treat people around us. It was just like, this should be a place where anyone comes, and it is the ragtag misfit of everyone from every walk of life, and with every kind of inclination and perhaps belief as well, but that's okay. We welcome you in.
Yeah, the literal motto of our church is church for people who have given up on church.
Amazing.
So it's like the island of misfit toys.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah. Okay. So final question. And this is a big kind of important one. What advice do you have for men who are struggling to find their place in a rapidly changing society?
Yeah. I think the first thing you have to do is look inside. So look inwards first. And if you're struggling to find your place in society today and struggling to work out where you fit, look inside and see if you can identify where it is that's causing that feeling of disconnected or discomfort with what's going on. What is it that is either stopping you from being who you are or being the man you want to be? And if that's internal, amazing. Pull your finger out and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys love to say that other people will play the victim, but no, I know so many guys that have that victim mentality mindset of this is just who I am, so you've all got to deal with it instead of me. No, actually do the work, guys. Do what you need to do so that you actually become responsible for yourself, your emotions, the way you interact, your behavior, the way you go about life. Because I think if you then are feeling content that I am doing everything I can be to be the person I want to be, then I think that feeling of I don't fit in this world or I don't know where my place is in this world starts to diminish, because you're not going, well, this is where I think I'm supposed to be aiming for. You're just like, I'm doing everything I can here in my immediate circle with the people that I'm in contact with the most to be the person I want to be. And I think that then gives you the capacity to go, at the very least, even if the world still goes to hell in a handbasket, I've done everything I can do to try and make it a better place for others.
Fantastic advice. Love that. Perfect way to end. I always wish every single one of my guests something really simple, and it's keep up the hard work.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, James. It's been a great conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time, and wish you the best in the future.
Amazing. Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for the chat and the opportunity.
You can learn more about Illuminate at illuminate.substack.com. We are also streaming on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you at the next episode of Illuminate.